good morning, afternoon, or evening, and welcome to the Bloody Disgusting Network. The following show is just horrifying. Beware.
Sheriff, you're not cheating on your wife if you eat my lemon square.
Your lemon squares taste like ass.
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking, how's your head? I haven't had any complaints yet. We're talking big openings. And we're talking, I was also a great pair of legs. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking one woman Sodom and Gomorrah, if you will. A slimy, slithering succubus, a concubine, a streetwalker, a tramp, a slut, a cheap whore! We're talking Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Sorry, that was really loud.
It's okay, you got into it. I like the method.
Oh my god. Joe, this was a first-time watch for me because I am ashamedly a bad gay and have...
Bad gay.
No exposure. Actually, I'm sorry. I said I had no exposure to Elvira. We did see her in Scooby-Doo Return to Zombie Island 2 years ago.
A part so memorable you forgot about it. But now you have rectified that oversight and you are... fully on board?
Oh my god, yes. For the past 3 days, I've been doing a deep dive into Elvira, and yeah, it's one of those things where I was aware of her presence when I was growing up, but like my parents probably thought she was too silly. My mom probably thought that she was too risque, and
right.
I would think that her host, like Movie Macabre, would have aired probably like in the wee hours of the night when I wasn't allowed to be up. So yeah, I didn't have this connection with her like so many of my fellow queers did, and I'm a little jealous after watching this movie.
Yeah, it's a whole barrel of fun. I also came to this relatively late, but you know what? We can talk about that in a little bit because I feel like maybe we should bring somebody else in.
Yes. Let's bring someone who may have more experience with Elvira on the podcast. Everyone. She is a drag queen, actor, comedian, and singer who won the 5th season of RuPaul's Drag Race, as well as the most recent season of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars, the all-winner season. She is the subject of the 2015 documentary Drag Becomes Him, and you can also listen to her podcast, Hi Jinkx, in which she brings her unique brand of talk to the podcast airwaves through thoughtful, hilarious, and even probing conversations with your favorite celebrities, comedians, and artists. Please welcome Jinkx Monsoon.
What an introduction. Thank you.
I mean, you've truly done it all, so...
Well,
I will tell you, with a Wikipedia page as long as yours, to just narrow it down to 3 bullet points was a fucking challenge.
that's why I just boil it down to internationally tolerated drag queen.
Well, thank you for coming onto the show, Jinkx. You ready to talk Elvira?
Always. I'm always ready to talk Elvira. She's been a huge part of my life. And I think most drag queens, I don't know. I don't know a single drag queen who doesn't have a relationship to Elvira in some way. I don't know. But I also don't get around as much as I used to. Who knows?
When did you first, do you remember when you first discovered her? Because I mean, again, I'm a child of the 90s, and I feel like I knew her through commercials and advertisements, but I didn't know what Movie Macabre was until, probably well into my 20s.
I feel like she was just always in my life, Like, I don't remember being introduced to her at any one point. I just feel like she's always been there. It's been like the Simpsons and Elvira have just always been there.
I think she has been on The Simpsons, too.
And so I knew about her my whole life, but I think it wasn't until my late teens that I saw the movie. But I also was like... I identified with her so much. I was definitely an Addams Family queer kid. I loved anything that was about the spooky misfit going against the grain of society, And I was obsessed with a character based on Elvira in the show Darkwing Duck. She was Darkwing Duck's girlfriend. I think she was a goose named Morgana, and she had magic powers, and I was obsessed with her.
Oh God! See, I guess I'm trying to think with this type of character. I guess Angelica Houston's Morticia Addams, which I realize is not the original one, but that was my introduction to like this sexy, funny lady of the night.
It's such a wonder. I mean, it's been around for forever because before Elvira, there was Vampira. And I mean, like, Elvira's very self-aware of the genre she's pulling from and very self-aware of the references she's making. Like, it's not an accident. Whereas Vampira, I think, wasn't there someone before Vampira at the same time as Vampira?
Oh, entirely possible. I mean, well, it's interesting, though, even talking about this, because I was doing some research and I looked into Vampira, and it's one of those things where, Vampira made a mark. She was a cultural landmark, but she was only around, her show was only around for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was 50 episodes in 1954 and 1955.
Oh my God, 50 episodes. Do you two remember the days when we were getting that many episodes of the show?
In one season, by the way.
Yeah, now it's like 6 if we're lucky, if the writers all got along through the end of the
streaming model. I mean, I love the binge model, but I also hate it because I think it's ruined people's patience. What was it when WandaVision was? Well, because when WandaVision was coming, people were like, the entitlement. Like Disney should just be giving this all at once. Why are they making us wait? And I'm like, go fuck yourself, y'all. Like, this is
because
such
they're
bullshit.
Creating a ritual around watching it. Like, and it wasn't that long ago that we were just, that was the norm. And people, technology is advancing so quickly these days, and entertainment is evolving with technology so quickly that people, it's like, that wasn't that long ago that we used to have to wait a week for the new episode. And now people are acting like, if I can't have it all at once, I better go fucking postal.
That's what they do.
That's so inconvenienced everyone. Oh my God, can you imagine waiting 6 whole days?
Jinkx, I'm telling you, so I grew up, I mean, like, look, my family had 5 or 6 TVs in our house. Every one of our bedrooms had a guest bedroom.
Why?
Because we watched so much TV. So every night we had at least 4 of these 6 TVs recording something with a VHS tape. And then we would spend the weekends, like, we had a fucking chart and everything on our fridge. So we would spend the weekends watching all the things on our VHS tapes just so we could tape over them the next week with the new episodes.
Oh my God, Trace, I feel like like another piece of the puzzle has just clicked into place.
I didn't have that, but I grew up in a family where there was always a TV on. There was always like a central TV that was just always on, and then there were many sub-TVs throughout the house, usually in the bedrooms. And there was just always the background noise, the white noise of just the TV being left on. And it's one of my trashiest qualities is that I am now just someone who puts on the TV and then wants to go about my business. And sometimes when people aren't used to me, they come over and I'm like, hi, it's so nice to see you. I can't wait to visit. Put on a TV show and then start talking to them. And they're like, why did you put on Seinfeld just to be distracting in the background?
They're like, it's ambiance, it's background. Come on.
But Jinkx, are you a person who like falls asleep with the TV on?
Yes, much to my husband's chagrin, and I've been getting better at it. I've been trying more and more to sleep without the TV. But when I'm on tour and it's my rules, that hotel TV. I travel with my PlayStation 5 just so that I can play video games and watch the TV I want to watch. This is something I only started doing when I quit drinking. I said, you know what? I quit drinking. I'm going to be difficult in this regard and travel everywhere with my PlayStation 5 because I need a new way to wind down at the end of the night.
Wait a minute. Okay, so for anyone that does not own a PlayStation 5, this thing is a monstrosity. It is an enormous piece of technology.
Oh my God, Jinkx, are you a diva? Do you have like a manservant who carries the PlayStation 5 around for you?
No, I just had to buy new cases for all my stuff because my back is going out on me because I'm traveling around with a backpack and a PlayStation 5.
That is so... Literally, whenever someone comes over to my apartment and they've never seen a PlayStation, they look at it and they're like, what is that? And I'm like, that's the PlayStation 5. Mm-hmm.
That obelisk in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
It has some very, like, a vaginal opening on the front. I guess the side of the front, depending on how you're laying it. But, like, it just looks off. But it works.
So what you're saying is it's like Elvira. It's in the middle of the room and it's got a giant hole in it.
I know how trashy this is going to make me sound, but it looks like the sculpture that Marie makes in... Everybody Loves Raymond. Marie makes a sculpture and it ends up looking like a vagina and it freaks everyone out. It looks like that sculpture.
Just super white with a little bit of black in it.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh my god. Okay, well that's amazing. Wait, actually, I'm sorry. Really quick though, what is your on tour go-to game?
Overwatch. That's like Overwatch, like, you know, because it's all rounds and matches. So I can just, I don't have a lot of time these days to play one of my long fantasy RPGs like I like to. So Overwatch is my go-to. And then if I have a day off, I might sink into something like right now I have Horizon Forbidden West. Barely given it any of my time, but it's there ready for me.
When you play because Overwatch is multiplayer, right? Like, do you play with other people?
Yeah, it's like capture the flag with superpowers.
Yeah. Do you just pop in and be like, "Hi, it's Jinkx Monsoon"? Or do you like hide it?
No,
12-year-old boys are like, who?
No, I just get, you know, you get randomly queued in with a team. Mm-hmm. I don't have, like, there was a while that I was playing with Jonan Vasquez. Jonan Vasquez. The creator of Invader Zim. Craziest cross-pollination, but we were chatting one day about Overwatch and then we started playing together online.
Oh my god.
Nice. It's a small world.
Yeah. I made the mistake of making my username my first and last name, and so and I can't change it. So if I ever become famous, people are just gonna know who I am, and I really fucked myself over with that one.
Yeah, I'm sure you accidentally did that one. Oh no, people know who I am.
It was 2009. It was Christmas. It was my first PlayStation 3, and I got Batman Arkham City, and I was so excited to play that I was like, fine, let me just set this up really quick. Anyway. Okay, well, let's jump into Elvira. So for some of our listeners who may not know, I feel like everyone should know who Elvira is, but maybe you don't know why she is, I guess.
Why Elvira is? Okay.
Well, that was my thing, honestly. Again, so I was always aware of Elvira, but I could not have told you what she was famous for or what she did.
This is true, listeners. I have tried to educate Trace, and by educate, I just mean, well, she did the movie, and she had that thing where she hosted, and you were always like, I just don't get it. And I was like, well, maybe when you watch the fucking movie, you'll understand.
The concept of a hostess, which again has been around for over half of a century. I'm sorry, almost a whole century. I guess because I never watched it, I didn't really understand the concept until Joe Bob kind of came back, and my husband was like, "Oh my god, Joe Bob! I used to watch him all the time," and I was like, "Who?" I just didn't get it. But nevertheless, this is part of my education.
Am I correct in believing, didn't she start on local cable and then get syndicated? Well, or is that just kind of like the story we've been fed?
You are correct. So it was local. It was only in LA. It seems to be, so she nabbed a Coors Light commercial, and that seems to be when it really took her off into the mainstream. Like, it wasn't just LA people watching her, but at the same time, like, I know Joe Bob did like Monster Vision on TNT or TBS, and that was like 3 a.m. on weeknights. I think maybe Elvira could have been syndicated there too once she started becoming more nationally well known.
Well, I mean, like, we've seen so many different versions of this throughout time, and Mystery Science Theater 3000 isn't far off from what Elvira does, you know? And it's just funny. It's been part of our culture for so long in the background. Yeah. It is kind of funny that no one knows the true origins of when Elvira made it big, because we're just like, yeah, she hosted movie things. We know this is
She's
a
always
thing.
been here.
This is a way, you know, there's Jimmy Fallon, Elvira, like, these are people we know.
Joe and I were talking before you got on about how, because Shudder brought Joe Bob back, but like we got one Elvira special and we didn't really get more of that. I would love to watch a talk show hosted by Elvira.
100%. Yes.
God.
Yeah.
Well, let's try to track the origins of Elvira, okay? So we're going to go start in 1981, and this is 6 years after the death of Larry Vincent, who starred as host Sinister Seymour of a Los Angeles weekend horror show called Fright Night. I have to believe Peter Vincent is somewhat based on him. Okay.
100%.
Okay. But yeah, so he's dead. 6 years later, the show producers are like, hey, we want to bring it back, but why don't we make it a hostess instead of a host? So they go back to horror hostess Mela Nurmi, who was the original Vampira. And again, that aired for one season of 50 episodes in 54 and 55. But Nurmi, believing she was too old to play Vampira again, she's like, hey, I'll help you do this, but I want to bring in a new host, like a protege for who I am. So she said, I'm only going to do this if you, if I can find and tutor the right actress myself. She had final approval to cast and personally train her as part of their contract agreement. However, she had difficulty finding the right actress to be the new Vampira. Her top choice was Lola Falana, but the studio shut her down. And I couldn't really figure out why. However, given the time period, Lola Falana is a black woman, and I wonder if that had something to do with it.
No, why? Why would you think such a thing?
Producers were getting impatient, and so they just fucking ghosted Nurmi. They shut her out. They sent out a casting call behind her back, effectively breaking their own deal. Cassandra Peterson, who was a graduate of the comedy troupe The Groundlings, which of course would go on to deliver many, many SNL cast members, auditioned for the role, and she got it. She and her best friend Robert Redding came up with the sexy punk variant of the original Vampira dress, and I should point out here, the movie Elvira, Mistress of the Dark is dedicated to Redding, who not only helped her come up with the outfit, but styled all of her wigs, but sadly died from AIDS-related complications in 1986. So here's a little bit of drama for us. Shortly before the first taping, producers were still using the name Vampira. So Nurmi sent them a cease and desist letter because she was like, what the fuck, y'all?
Yeah, rightfully so.
They broke early for lunch during this taping. And basically they're like, cool, after they come back from lunch, we're going to change her name. Instead of Vampira, it's going to be Elvira. And we're going to, instead of playing her like how Nurmi plays Vampira, we're going to make her a Valley Girl type. Because it was different enough to where they were like, hey, this will protect us from any legal ramifications.
Oh my God. And just do it up over lunch. Like, well, people are over at craft services. Can we just whip up some new zhuzh?
So right before the court case, and again, this is woof, Nurmi's lawyer abruptly and giving no reason quit the case, keeping all evidence and case paperwork that had been collected and prepared.
It sounds like a payoff, doesn't it?
Yes. Okay. I call foul play.
Mm-hmm.
With no way to get to the courthouse in downtown Los Angeles from Hollywood, because the thing is that Nurmi did not drive, and her lawyer was supposed to supply transportation to the court.
No.
This is the stupidest reason for this poor woman to basically lose a bunch of livelihood and have the ability to influence these decisions.
It's the next American Crime Story.
Yeah.
Ryan Murphy, no, back off.
But she was unable to make it to the court in time. The judge in the case had no other recourse than to rule against her and in favor of Peterson and the producers. But urban legend has been perpetuated over the years that it was only about the color of the dress, the wig, and a similar shtick, but the case was actually much more specific and detailed in those documents that Nurmi's lawyer kept with them.
I wonder, and this may be me entirely just
spinning a yarn,
trying to keep everything as idealistic in my head. But, I know from my own dealings in the industry that half the time the talent in these things don't even know about all the behind the scenes drama, and I know Elvira Cassandra Peterson. I know her in life, and I know her to be just one of the kindest, most generous, gracious people, and just so lovely. So for me, I'm going to say it's a bunch of men exploiting women and being assholes, and hopefully Cassandra was not over there let's stick it to to Vampire.
Sure. Also, this is obviously super early in Peterson's career, be it of Elvira or not.
Have you ever looked into basically this all happened before with Betty Boop?
Oh.
Like, this entire thing happened with the character of Betty Boop and Helen Kane, who essentially was Betty Boop in real life.
Right.
And then Betty Boop was so closely based off of what Helen Kane was doing and even singing some of the same songs that she was known for. And she tried to sue the cartoon company, but then the case got thrown out because some other woman that she had ripped off her entire character from came forward, and there was no way to prove who invented this character.
And that's the thing with the Elvira thing. So they were like, even with all that shit with Nurmi and her lawyer, the judge still was like, look, like, you're not doing Vampira. You are doing something that is clearly influenced by her, but you're not doing the same character. So I can't legally do anything here.
Right.
But
Yeah.
nevertheless, so the show goes on, and it became Movie Macabre with Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, which aired locally, and by locally, again, I think this means LA only, from 1981 to 1986, and her character rapidly gained notoriety with her tight-fitting, low-cut black gown, which obviously showed ample cleavage, which something Vampira was absolutely not allowed to do in the 50s.
Right, yeah.
The movies featured on Movie Macabre were always B-grade or lower. Elvira reclined on a red Victorian couch, introducing and often interrupting the movie to lampoon the actors, the script, and the editing. Adopting the flippant tone of a California Valley girl, she brought a satirical, sarcastic edge to her commentary, and of course reveled in dropping risque double entendres and making frequent jokes about her display of cleavage, which, I mean, it's there. There's lots of cleavage there all the time.
I was going to say, you're also just describing the movie.
And what I love about Elvira is her reach was far enough that, like, again, The Simpsons, they have a character named Boobarella, which is just, it's a very on-the-nose representation of Elvira in The Simpsons world, and it's hilarious to me. But I had to roast Elvira once.
No.
Oh, God.
It was the roast of Peaches Christ, and Elvira was one of the roasters on the dais. And my friend and collaborator and writing partner, Nick Sahoya, wrote me a joke for Elvira, and I almost scrapped it. I said, I don't think this joke is gonna work. And it was like, he had to talk me into keeping it in my set. And, you know, like, we write my set together, and so I always have veto power. And I don't know what made me decide to keep it in, but I kept it in, and it fucking killed, and it pisses me off to this day. But the joke was, Elvira, some people call you irrelevant, but I can't remember the joke. The punchline ends with, who wouldn't want to watch a second-rate Vampira telling Rodney Dangerfield jokes? I get no respect in this crypt. No respect. And something about saying no respect in this crypt, like, just brought the house down, and I was furious. I was like, I cannot believe this is the joke that killed. But it's pretty succinct, you know? It's Vampira telling Rodney Dangerfield jokes.
Oh, for sure. Wait, so did you want to pull it because you thought it was A, not funny, or B, too offensive, or both?
Oh, I wasn't worried about it being too offensive. Cassandra has a really great sense of humor, you know, and it's a roast.
Yeah.
You know, I don't hold back at roasts, and I think, you know, I think it's so evident that I love the people that I roast. Like, if I don't, my roasts for people I don't care for are really bland and boring. The harder I go in on something, it's because because I know enough about them to know what's funny to joke about and what, like, you know, and I know where to go in. And she, you know, she loved that joke. I don't think it's particularly offensive. It's it's low hanging fruit. Calling her a second-rate Vampira, I mean, it's like, that's like 101 roasting. You know, it's right there. The fruit is laden with juices, and all you have to do is pluck it.
It's a delicate balance, though, because, you know, I mean, like, sometimes people can just be plain mean without being funny in their roast, so good for you. So, going into how did Elvira become famous? How did she become, maybe not a household name, but a statewide name. I don't know. So Elvira soon evolved from an obscure cult figure to a lucrative brand. And I think that's the key here. It wasn't necessarily that she was doing like movies and television. She just became a brand that people became aware of. She was associated with many products through the 1980s and 90s, including Halloween costumes, comic books, action figures, trading cards, pinball machines, Halloween decor, model kits, calendars, perfumes, and dolls. She has appeared on the cover of Femme Fatale's magazine 5 times. She was a frequent returning guest on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, among other talk shows. She produced a long-running series of Halloween-themed television commercials for Coors Light Beer and Mug Root Beer, although her trademark cleavage was concealed from the Coors campaign, because I guess that was not family appropriate for the beer.
Well, you can't give sexual imagery in the same place you're giving alcohol, because then, you know, how can you expect a man to behave himself if he gets drunk while looking at cleavage, you know? It's a crime of passion at that point. Men
can't control their impulses.
Jesus Christ. I'll get into it when we talk about the movie.
God.
Very fair.
Very fair. She also appeared in guest roles in television dramas like Chips, The Fall Guy, and Fantasy Island, appeared on numerous award shows as the presenter. So about this time, this is probably around actually 85 in the 4th season of her show. She was like, I want to make a movie. Because it wasn't just people in LA seeing her, everyone around the country knew who she was. So enter NBC president Brandon Tartikoff, who really loved the character of Elvira. He really got it and got along really well with Peterson. He's like, hey, I want to do a sitcom for Elvira, and I want to put it in primetime. And she talked with her producer, and he was like, look, you can do this. The problem is, in the 80s, as soon as you go to primetime, you are therefore branded a TV star. And you cannot make it in Hollywood. Hollywood will not take you seriously. It's not the same today.
No.
But back then, TV was TV, and it was a rung lower on the ladder of the entertainment business. So she reluctantly passed on this offer to have a primetime Elvira sitcom on NBC. A few months go by, and Tartikoff calls her back and goes, hey, I just secured funds from Jack Welch, who is the chairman of G&E, who at the time owned NBC. And he's like, he's going to give me all this money to start NBC production. So we're going to make TV shows, but we're also going to make movies under this banner. So I want to make your Elvira movie on the offer that no matter how many movies we make, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 5, I have first right of refusal on the Elvira sitcom. And that is exactly the deal that went through.
I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Had the movie done better.
Yeah, there is that.
We have 3 credited screenwriters on Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Peterson was obviously one of them, but she brought in her frequent writing collaborator, John Paragon. Now, John Paragon, they met in the comedy troupe The Groundlings, and he worked his way up from recurring guest star as the Breather character on her show. So in Movie Macabre, like between like movies and when she was coming in doing her commentary, she would frequently get phone calls from the Breather, who would just breathe on the phone and say lewd jokes to her that she would act all offended by. But he eventually got upgraded to an actual writer on Movie Macabre. But then they bring in Sam Egan into the fold because he was an experienced TV writer. He impressed Peterson with a script for his Fall Guy episode, and it's not the video game, this is actually a sitcom that existed in the 80s, October the 31st, which he had written explicitly for Elvira. But Peterson's on record saying that while he was integral to this process, she does think that NBC put him on there because they needed someone to keep track of her and Paragon as groundlings because they were
they probably ran a little wild.
Yes.
And they wanted someone with industry cred and experience to make sure that the ship stayed right.
And that's what I'm so happy that it seems like we're shifting away, or because we have so many different platforms with so many different rules and regulations, you know, like we're seeing a lot more work coming from the creators where there's less people interfering.
Yes.
Because I feel like I wonder what this movie could have been if there weren't like money people interfering. Thinking about the broad audience and neutering it down. But then I also think like, you know, that it is a very good representation of what Elvira's material
Mm-hmm.
is, you know? And there's some things that are so genius about it that I'm like, was it just ahead of its time, or was it too meta at points,
Right.
or who knows why a movie doesn't do well?
I actually
We
have
have
answers.
theories.
I have answers. I have answers for you, Jinkx. But no, like, honestly, like, this again, as someone who is not super familiar with Elvira, like I was like, oh, I get her appeal here. I also love just the general story of, like, you know, fish out of water. I mean, I feel like the Brady Bunch movie would go on to take this outline of a script and use it for them, you know, putting a family from the 70s and the 90s. But for the director, so okay, and speaking of like what ifs, Peterson wanted Tim Burton to direct this film because she appeared in a small role in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So she was like, cool, get this guy to do it. He knows what he's doing.
Could see it, especially at this time.
Well, do you know what came out the same year as this?
Yeah.
Beetlejuice?
Yeah, Beetlejuice.
Oh.
So he was tied up with Beetlejuice. So Tartikoff, again, this NBC guy, he taps James Signorelli to direct. And Signorelli had only had one feature film to his credit, but he had been prolifically churning out commercial parodies on Saturday Night Live since 1977. I think that works for this movie, but I think when we get into the negative reception for this movie, that's going to play a hand in that. As for the film itself, though, so Tartikoff and casting director Joel Thurm wanted to, as Jinkx said, broaden Elvira's appeal and move away from horror movies, make it less racy and all that jazz. And I think that's pretty interesting given the fact that we do have the utterance of the word blowjob in this PG-13 film. I was shocked to hear that. Tartikoff was apparently great and one of Peterson's favorite TV executives, but NBC said, if the audience is made up of teenagers, then we have to have teenagers in the movie.
Blah.
So, while I do think in the end, like, the teenagers work here,
It's fine, yeah.
they did have to add them in to their script and therefore remove a lot of screen time for these side characters that were played by the groundlings. So in the reviews, they're like, ooh, there's no characters to latch onto. Well, that's because they had to add in these teenage characters and remove all this other stuff with these other, like, fun characters. Not much fun information about casting. Many of the roles in the film were played by Cassandra Peterson's associates in the Groundlings, but I will say that Uncle Vinny was supposed to be played by Vincent Price. He was friends with Peterson, but apparently there are conflicting reports. Some say he passed because of the racy material, which I
could believe it.
Really? I don't know, man. Like, he was super liberal by this time, like fooling around with men.
Well, not like publicly.
In the town square, like, look what I am doing.
But some say that they couldn't afford him, so I'm going to choose to believe that, and that Vincent Price did not willfully turn down Elvira Mistress of the Dark because it was quote-unquote too racy. The other, again, this is one of those what ifs too. The role of Randy, I'll give you both $1 if you can tell me who this character is. It was narrowed down to two actors. It was Chris Cam and a very then unknown Brad Pitt. Cam won the part because Peterson felt that if Pitt was in the movie, he was so hot that it wouldn't make sense for Elvira to go after Bob when this 20-something Brad Pitt playing a teenager was right there.
Randy's the one that ends up going for, what's her name? You know, Robin, after she gets the Sandy makeover.
Damn it, Jinkx. Now I owe you $1.
Jinkx, don't forget to collect at the end of the podcast.
Add it to the pile, yeah.
We'll play a game of Overwatch and we'll see who wins. 2 out of 3. So, okay, the film was shot over a span of 8 weeks, beginning in between January and March of '88. One of the most problematic issues was actually Peterson's co-star, not a person, but Benny, the temperamental poodle playing Gonk. Random factoid, so out of nowhere, last night. So I watched this movie last night and I was like a little high and I was like, I just want to watch something that I've had on my list forever. So I went down my list and I'd never seen the movie Ruthless People with Danny DeVito and Bette Midler. Mm-hmm. Amazing film. I really, really liked it. It's a great comedy of errors. Little did I know, the fucking dog that plays Gonk in this movie is also in that movie.
Perfect pairing.
Good times, good times. But anyway, this fucker did not seem to like anyone except his trainer. It had trouble hitting its mark. It didn't perform properly. It actually attacked Kurt Fuller's ankle, and Kurt Fuller's the guy who plays the real estate agent, Mr. Glotter. He was left with long-lasting scars from this dog, and the entire scenes had to be dubbed to mute the trainer's commands.
Oh, wow.
So, I didn't catch any bad dubbing here, though, so it looked fine to me.
Mm-mm.
So, going into the release, once Elvira, Mistress of the Dark was in post-production, Tartikoff, again, producer of this movie doing NBC shit, he was like, oh, I guess we need like a distributor for this to put it in theaters.
Funny how that works.
I'm so sorry. Can I interject just to say that there's this other detail of all of this is that Tartikoff sounds like an evil Russian wizard who's like somehow the producer of, I mean, like, this sounds like a Marvel movie plot now, like Elvira's like being taken under the wing of Tartikoff, who may not have the best intentions for her power.
I mean, it is the end of the Cold War, so.
Oh my god. It's so bizarre. I will say, so I have the Arrow Blu-ray of this, and there is a making of featurette that is longer than the movie itself. But Peterson does say that she thinks that Tartikoff was the last TV executive she ever met to have a sense of humor. So while he may sound like an evil Russian dictator, he apparently was a pretty good guy.
I said wizard, okay?
He said wizard.
He's got a wizard sleeve going on, sure. But yes, I don't think he knew what he was doing in Hollywood in terms of film stuff. Like he was not on top of his shit, for lack of a better phrase.
Well, yeah, because it sounds like maybe the deal that they struck with her was a kind of new thing, right? So make the movie, but also make the TV show. I wonder if this guy's background was just more in TV and then film stuff was new.
I mean, he didn't know he needed a distributor for the movie.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, granted, I don't know movie business stuff that much, but I feel like people forget that production companies and distributors are different beasts. Usually.
This is true. Yes.
Anyway, so, but he was like, oh, hey, but our head of miniseries just moved over to New World Entertainment, which is opening up a new independent film distribution company. And listeners, if you're like, New World Entertainment, that sounds really fucking familiar. That would be because they also released Hellraiser 1 and 2 and Heathers before going bankrupt.
And when did they go bankrupt, Trace?
After this movie. So, I'm sorry. The day before this movie went to theaters. So, they locked that deal, and Elvira Mistress of the Dark was released on September 30th, 1988 in 627 theaters, opening in the number 7 spot with $1.7 million. Now,
boo.
Okay. Let me
set the scene.
First of all, New World Pictures supposedly went out of business literally the day before this movie came to theaters, causing the number of theaters showing the film to drop from over 1,000 theaters or screens to 627, which obviously helped the low box office, aided to the low box office. Also not helping the film is that the trades were reporting that New World Entertainment was possibly going under and not making its interest payments. So the movie theaters were like, oh shit, well, New World's not going to be writing us checks anymore for the advertising and marketing in all the theaters. So they just basically, as the weeks went on, they kept dropping theaters for Elvira. So it wasn't, This was not just, people don't know her. This was a business fuck up of the highest order.
Yeah. For
comparison, though, the number 1 movie that weekend was Gorillas in the Mist. Yay, Sigourney Weaver. Should have won an Oscar, but whatever. This had just expanded from a limited release of 20 theaters to 558 theaters, which is almost 100 less than Elvira, but grossed $3.5 million. So again, it's like, okay, the number 1 movie made $3.5 million. The number 7 movie made $1.7 million. It's not a big deal. This movie flopped because of the New World shit.
Yeah, and I think the problem too is that the optics look particularly bad, right? So business-wise, it looks like, oh, this company's not doing well. So within the industry, people are talking they're getting rid of the film because it's going to cost them money. And then the movie debuts in 7th spot. And sure, the number between the financial difference between 1 and 7 is not huge, but a movie debuting in 7th place doesn't look good. So people are like, well, it's probably not very good. So they don't go.
Well, and again, so between 1 and 7, we had popular films like A Fish Called Wanda in number 3 and Die Hard in number 5. However, both of these films were in their 12th week of release.
It sounds to me like enough people with enough resources saw the brilliance of Elvira and wanted to share her in a very big way.
Yeah.
And they didn't particularly have the know-how or the game plan with which to do this. It reminds me of kind of like, it just makes me kind of think of I Love Lucy or The Nanny, where it's like there was just someone obsessed with this powerful woman and built an altar to her.
Yeah.
Right.
And it sounds like the people building the altar to Elvira were short-sighted.
Yeah, and I didn't watch. I mean, it's on my fucking Blu-ray. I didn't watch the trailer for this movie. Have either one of y'all seen the trailer for this movie?
No, I think at one point in my life, but not recently.
I don't know how it was marketed, because again, it might be a thing where it's like it's inside baseball, where it's like, oh, like only Elvira fans want to go see her, but the whole point of this movie was to broaden her audience base. So. Someone or multiple people done fucked up.
Yes. And not the movie's fault, because when you watch the movie, it's fucking delightful.
Well, you should go read some... You know what? Give me a second. Anyway, it wound up with a domestic gross of $5.6 million against a production budget of $7.5 million. So this was effectively a flop. However, on home video, the film shipped 180,000 copies in the first week, and I have no metrics of comparison, but apparently that was pretty good. And this is a time when home video was costing $89.95 to buy a VHS tape for a movie.
That rental market, not the buyer's market.
It's so funny, like, discussing this, like, what, a month or two after Tremors, when that also was a big home video release. I feel like if this movie came out 2 years later, it would have done better on home video, or, like, it would have been more known for doing well on home video, but...
Probably.
So, reception. We are looking at a 52% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average score of 4.9 out of 10.
Boo.
So, a common critique of this film is that there is no plot, which I vehemently disagree with. The plot is that she wants $50,000.
Yeah, and she goes to a small town. It's basically Footloose with magic.
Yeah, I mean, the plot is secondary to just watching Elvira do her bit, but it is such an iconic plot. She has a distant relative who passes away. She inherits a spooky mansion. Like, we know that plot. And then you add in that she needs to raise $50,000 so she can do her show in Vegas. It's a lot of layers, but it also is like, it's a fairly simple plot. So anyone to say that there is no plot is just not trying to give this movie any credit.
So I challenge both of you after maybe tomorrow after we've gotten our yayas out, but like go watch the Siskel and Ebert at the movies review of this film.
I will not.
They're not like super mean to it like they would be to something like, say, Friday the 13th, where they're like, ooh, watch out for the children. But it's very much Elvira's shtick works well in intermittent bursts, say when you're watching a movie and she comes in on a commercial break. However, at a 96-minute runtime, it gets really old really fast. And again, I disagree.
I disagree.
Yeah. I think that camp is an acquired taste, and I feel like because mainstream media is embracing camp in a different way than it ever has before, I feel like that's why this film, it would have a cult following if enough people were talking about it, because the things that you love about RuPaul's Drag Race are just everywhere in this. Like, it's like like you could see that Elvira and RuPaul have been friends for years in this movie, or that they come from a similar era in time with a similar appreciation of camp. Then you take into factor that, like, Elvira, Cassandra Peterson, the person who helped her create the character, I would venture to say was queer. Elvira, Cassandra herself, recently came out of the closet. So you have to assume, and you look at the character, you look at what she's doing drag. There's no other way to define it. So camp and the drag sensibility that is running rampant in this film, I don't think people had the tools with which to watch it back then. Like, they didn't have the tools readily available to them to appreciate the flavor of camp that's being served in this movie.
I agree with you. You're right. We are seeing a lot more camp, be it intentional or we are seeing a lot more intentional camp nowadays. And I'm conflicted because Elvira is intentional camp and it works, but I think we sometimes see things where it's like, sometimes there is a pretension with intentional camp where it's like, look at how funny we are because we're so bad. It's like, no, you're just bad.
Just
like
bad.
that's just what you're doing.
And I think that's again, it's like the difference between good camp and bad camp is when it's done by someone within the community who was raised understanding camp versus when a producer tries to recreate something that belongs to a community and the inauthenticity like reeks upon it, you know?
Right.
Well, no one got it because
all that to say,
this film received one Razzie Award nomination for Cassandra Peterson for Worst Actress in 1989, and she did lose, love this, to Liza Minnelli, who won for both Arthur 2 on the Rocks and Rent-A-Cop, and this is homophobia of the highest order. I don't know, man. Like, what the fuck? Again, watching this for the first time last night, I was like, if you want to put your rules of what makes a good film and a bad film on this, fine. Put that in your review. But for me, I'm always like, what is the movie trying to do? And is it successful at doing that? And this movie, in my opinion, is accomplishing what it's trying to do. But I also don't understand watching this and being like, how does someone not get a modicum of enjoyment watching this movie? Like, I belly laughed several times watching this movie.
Yeah, like, are you so dead inside that you can't understand the comedy? It may not be for you. It may not quite hit. I obviously think the three of us are in a more prime demographic who appreciate some of the campy delights that this film offers, but you really got to be a fucking stick in the mud to watch this and be like, oh no, I'm getting nothing out of this.
Well, and I mean, like, and then we have to address, even though this is pretty tame, pretty low heat, racy humor, especially today. But like, you just can't not consider the factor that she was a feminist icon, being a woman who owned her sexuality, had zero shame around her sexuality. And even though the movie itself is a celebration of that, the reception of the film is still going to be tinged with, you know, like, we don't want to see a woman who isn't ashamed that she's sexual, you know, even though that's what the character is designed to be, and
literally what it's all about.
And it's all tongue-in-cheek, and it's all self-deprecating, and, you know, even in this film, we see her constantly throwing herself at a man who doesn't reciprocate with the same fervor, you know, it's all very tongue-in-cheek. But it's like, you know, you can't deny that, like, any woman expressing her sexuality is going to be met with what women are met with in this country when they express their sexuality.
But you know, you're 100% right, Jinkx. And it's the thing where it's like, and look, I know I've mentioned Joe Bob Briggs a bunch of times. Like, I have my own issues with him, but it's the thing where I'm like, look, Joe Bob has had this resurgence of, like, you know, you go on this shit. And I feel like Elvira, since this movie came out, has gotten a raw deal from every single avenue. And look, there is nothing wrong with being on the convention circuit and, like, you know, going, like, that's a good moneymaker.
Get that money. Yep.
And so, not to imply that is less than, like, having a TV show or a movie.
But she should have other opportunities on par with, because she is also, let's also acknowledge, she's been fucking doing the work for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like, that needs to be recognized.
I have this feeling that there's and I don't have any insider knowledge, you know, like, I adore Cassandra, and every time we've worked together, every time we've crossed paths, she's just been everything you'd want out of someone you've worshipped your whole life, you know? So I don't have any insider knowledge, so don't go pulling quotes or any shit, you know? But oh
my God, Jinkx, we get it. You're in Cassandra Peterson's pocket. You're in big Cassandra Peterson.
Listen, I just know I've watched what's happened with Jennifer Coolidge recently, and to a lesser degree, but I'm also noticing this, like a quieter resurgence for Bebe Neuwirth, who's suddenly doing a bunch of voice acting in a lot of really interesting animated work. I don't think we need to worry. As long as she's viable and as long as she's working, I don't think we need to worry, because we don't know what's in store. And the public
Right.
reaction to her coming out was so wonderful.
So good.
Mhm.
And so amazing. And there's this part of me that's like, it kind of puts what she's always been doing into a whole new perspective. So if you don't already appreciate the character of Elvira for just like the tongue-in-cheek nature, taking the same thing that men were doing for years, making jokes about sex, being like,
Mhm.
being sexually aggressive, being zero guilt, zero shame, flagrant display of one's sexuality, you know, using her tits as a joke, doing what a drag queen does with dicks, she does with her own breasts, you know, like
Mhm.
everything's a tit joke. And then if you now look back on it, if you look back retrospectively and put in the layer that she has been in a committed relationship with a woman for years and has self-identified as queer for years, it layers in this nuance and this like, I don't know. It's not that she's more brilliant because she's queer, but it's more brilliant because she's queer. She has been a straight
Right.
sex icon for decades. And meanwhile, she's one of us. And that's why she's resonated with us for
Mhm.
so long. And I think that is going to lead to the next renaissance of Elvira, that authenticity and that new connection that her long-standing fan base has had with her.
I really, really, really hope you're right about that, Jinkx, because I mean, even just watching interviews with her, I'm just like, she's, whether she is being Cassandra or if she's in her Elvira persona, like she is just a delightful listen.
Mhm.
Like I want to keep watching her talk. She's so candid, so funny. And yeah, to be like, oh, she's one of us the whole time. Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She's been playing all those straight men for fools.
Yeah, there's such power in that, and we see it in the film. What I love about the film, in regards to, you know, feminism,
Mhm.
everything we've been talking about that the Elvira character brings to the table, and then to see like basically every man in the film just be disgusting, just foul, and it's just like, and she is always in charge. It does kind of make me, I was kind of thinking, oh my God, I can't believe how many movies of this era, though, like if you think of Tu Wong Fu and you think of like, it basically, it's just funny that so many films are like, if you leave the city as a feminine presenting person with sex appeal, you should
You're
just expect to be sexually assaulted constantly.
Yes.
Like,
I'm also just like imagining all these men in the audience that are like, wait, why is she turning down these guys who are grabbing her hooters? Like, she's asking for it. She's dressed like it. She wants it. But I'm so confused.
Oh, wait, is my name Chastity? Mm.
The commentary in this movie is so apparent. And
Mhm.
again, that's something where I'm surprised that critics at the time didn't see that part of it, right? But it's also because we're living in the 80s.
Yeah.
Misogyny.
Trace, it's just because you're so woke.
yeah, well, like the satire, the commentary is smacking you in the face. You know, it's motorboating you the whole time.
Yeah.
Satirical motorboating.
And I feel like anyone discrediting the film is willfully, you know, ignoring the commentary that's being made.
Right.
Like, yes, it's cheesy. Yes, it's slapstick, Borscht Belt, Rodney Dangerfield style jokes, but that's what's so hilarious about it, is it's like, that's what I love about it, is she's this sex icon who's this goofy nerd, essentially. And all the time that she keeps showing her, like in the film, she has this glamorous dream sequence where she's going up the spiral staircase in this long flowing black nightgown, and she's got too much hair, and she's every femme fatale in every macabre movie. And then she wakes up and she's just like in her band t-shirt, and she's got her hair wrapped up, and she's you know, like she's this sexy bombshell weirdo goofy nerd, and that's what makes her so palatable, is that she's got this sexy side, but then she's also got this juvenile innocence. And when she's making the spell from the cookbook, she doesn't think twice about putting earthworms in it, because that's what the instructions say. She's like a clown character. She's got the innocence of a child, and then the sex drive of an average American man.
Yeah. Exactly that. Put that on her Wikipedia page. That's really it. I mean, before I pass it off to you, Joe, so we can go through the movie itself, just really quickly, Peterson did sell a script for a sequel pretty immediately after this movie came out. However, it got tied up in red tape when Coralco Pictures, another doomed 80s distributor, went bankrupt. I always associate them with Terminator 2 because that's why it took Terminator 3 so long to come out. Okay. But she followed through with plans to star in a sitcom, but 1993's The Elvira Show did not secure a spot on the TV schedule when CBS passed on it. And you say, well, wait, Trace, I thought NBC had the first right of refusal. They did, and they refused because Tartikoff had left NBC by this point, so she didn't have someone on her side there.
God damn it. Fucking Russian wizard abandoned her in her moment of need.
I will say, if you want, the pilot for the Elvira Show, which did not air, which was not picked up, is on YouTube for illegal purposes. But it's there. It's there. So you can watch it and see what would have been.
And it's also, if you watch Margaret Cho's comedy special, I believe it's Notorious CHO, she is very candid and talks a lot about what it was like being a woman leading a sitcom in the early 90s. Yes.
Margaret Cho had a raw deal too.
Yeah, and if you think back to what it there was one female-led sitcom in the early 90s, late 80s for every 5 male-led, and then the standards put on the women to be in primetime television were insane, impossible. You had to both be you had to have sex appeal, but be seen as a Madonna type. It was like huge news that Murphy Brown was an unwed mother. It was like, yep. It was a crazy, crazy battlefield for women at this time. So to hear that an Elvira pilot didn't make it to air doesn't surprise me at all.
On fucking CBS, no less. Like, oh, what a shock. Where was Fox?
Where the fuck was Fox?
I don't think Fox... Wait, I don't think Fox exists yet.
Did Fox even exist yet? Yeah, maybe
no,
not.
Married with Children put Fox on the map, which would have been 88. So actually, yeah, this would have been prime. Fox would have been riding the Married with Children train at this time.
Well, in that case, fuck you, Fox.
Supposedly, again, this is all rumor. It's hearsay at this point. But the guy at CBS was, again, really into Elvira, but he supposedly either got sick or the flu or something to where he had to go on like a lengthy leave of absence.
This is a Seinfeld episode.
I know! No, so the guy that came in to take over his shit while he was sick was a big sports guy and apparently balked at her cleavage and said, we cannot have that on our network every week.
We can just have men's tight asses as they pass the rubber football back and forth, but sure, no cleavage.
I reiterate, Married with Children is on Fox right now in its 5th or 6th season.
Absolutely wild.
The industry is slow moving
it's true.
I mean, like, yeah, and then when you do see the representation that got fought for, it's so watered down and so inauthentic so many times. The power should be in the hands of the creators, because the creators are hearing the actual response from their audience. It's like,
yep,
they wouldn't be there doing their thing, and you wouldn't be interested in them in the first place if they weren't doing something right. But when you get people interfering and trying to like turn it into what they think everyone wants to watch, that's when it comes out like crap.
Yeah, you always wonder what's going through studio executives' minds, right? Like, what makes y'all think y'all have your finger on the pulse of American mindsets? Whatever.
Well, I got focus groups.
I mean, that's like the Nielsen rating system, right? I don't trust that shit. I literally used to think that there was literally like a machine in all of our TVs that tracked what we were watching. I didn't need to sign up to be a Nielsen family. I would have done that a long time ago. Anyway, so Joe, what's this about? What's this movie with no plot about?
Right, yes. I've only got 3 pages of no plot.
Oh, God.
So, yeah, we open with a mild case of sexual harassment at Elvira's current hosting gig, and it's a big to-do, but basically the introduction is that she's fired, she needs $50K to launch her Vegas show, which she does not have, but luckily there is a fortuitous death in the family that she didn't know, so her great aunt has died, and she has to make the trip to Fallwell, Massachusetts, in her black leopard-print convertible with the vanity plate Kick-Ass.
We're already getting some groundlings here, though. I do want to point out that the anchor woman who's like, "Is there anything that shames you?" is Tress MacNeille, who some of us may know as the voice of Dot from Animaniacs.
She's the voice of... I had no idea that was Tress MacNeille. Tress MacNeille is such a hero to me. She's the voice of everything.
Yes!
She's everywhere.
She also does the voice for Aunt Morgana, despite the fact that she is not portraying Aunt Morgana.
Because Cassandra portrays...
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, McNeil's voice is always Dot from Animaniacs and Gadget from Chip and Dale. But I mean, yes, she has voiced many cartoon characters.
She's all over Futurama, Disenchanted. She's big in The Simpsons. She's in tight with Groening. So she's
So she's doing fine, is what you're saying.
Yeah, she's one of my heroes because she voices Mom on Futurama, which is one of my icon, my patron divas.
Yes. Is this one of your before bed shows that you leave on when you go to sleep?
Now that I do a Futurama podcast, I save it for the podcast because I get confused because I've seen the whole series of Futurama so many times that if I watch it in my personal time, I get confused of which episode we're actually talking about.
Oh, that's so interesting. Because that, for me and my husband, that's American Dad. American Dad is our before bed cartoon show.
That's my guilty pleasure of choice is American Dad.
We do not have guilty pleasures in this house, Jinkx. What the fuck are you saying?
They're just guilty. Wait, no, they're just pleasures.
Oh, God. So, Joe, American Dad podcast, you're going to start watching?
All right, moving on.
Okay.
So we get this montage of different things as she makes her way, but ultimately we end up in Fallwell. It is immediately coded as a ultra-conservative, family values-oriented small town. And she also immediately runs afoul of local biddy Chastity Pariah, played by Edie McClurg.
Just genius. Also, like, okay, I'm sorry to bring in John Waters to this because I know we're not talking about John Waters, but I get so much John Waters in this movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I mean, look, this is going to come later because it's John Waters' later filmography, but I feel like this would make a really good double feature with Cecil B. Demented, which is also tackling, like, the family values, censoring family media, and like as soon as I realized this is what we were doing with this movie, I was on board from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that she seems to operate in Addams Family rules, where the contemporary world exists, but she exists in her own timeline and just interacts with normal people. There's also, especially early in the movie, where there's this effect that's happening that it kind of reminds me of like when people... Oh, it's like she's speaking a foreign language because there's so many scenes where she's rattling off joke after joke after joke and the person will respond to maybe just the last thing she said or the first thing she said. And it's like everything else was just gibberish they didn't understand. And it feels like kind of similar to the genie in Aladdin, where the genie, being this otherworldly being, can make references to things that have nothing to do with what they're currently dealing with, can break the fourth wall, is constantly turning and talking to the audience, and the people around the genie just go about their business because they're like, whatever, I'm never going to understand the genie, you know?
but you are correct. But I think, and I'm using my parents as a litmus test here. Like, my parents, like, watching this, I was like, what? I could watch this and be like, okay, I know why my mom and dad did not like this, or why they said, like, oh, you don't need to watch that, Trace. It wasn't because it was necessarily inappropriate for me. It was because they didn't want to sit with me and watch this movie. Because they just, this isn't their type of humor. And so I imagine that for some people, it's too absurd, and they don't find it funny because they find it stupid instead, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate for me, because I'm thinking like my dad would have probably really appreciated this, because he would have appreciated her cleavage, but also the wordplay. Because like my family, we grew up watching things like The Naked Gun, and to me, that's the same kind of, it's not quite as campy, but it's very much like gag humor. We are breaking the fourth wall, or we're doing things that feel like they're playing to the audience as opposed to the world of the film. But because this is horror oriented, and you know, it stars a somewhat provocative female, like my parents would have never watched this because they're like, oh, that's not for us.
Yeah, I was going to cite Naked Gun as well, because it feels like very similar rules, where it's like cartoony when it needs to be cartoony. And that's how we don't feel bad when like people are randomly dying like around Elvira, because it's so cartoony. Like there's a part of us that's like, he didn't really die in that gas station explosion. He's just gonna come out the other end like covered in soot and be like, what happened? You know, like, and I like it for that. Like every time she finds an excuse to jump up and down just to be jumping up and down, it's like a drinking game. You know, it's like take a shot every time Elvira finds a half-ass excuse to jump up and down, you know? It's so funny.
That dream sequence alone where she just jumps and laughs for like 2 minutes.
Or presses her titties up against the windshield of the car as she wipes the windshield.
It's like, tits don't even appeal to me, but I'm living for every tit joke because it's so self-aware of what it's doing, and it's so funny because it's just like, it's the classic comedy model of setup and punchline, but the punchline is always her tits.
I'm also not a tit person, but I will say that without being sexually attracted to tits, I am fascinated by Cassandra Peterson's tits every time they're on screen in all 97 minutes of this movie. They're just so, they're aesthetically pleasing to my eyes, if not necessarily something that turns me on.
Well, because, I mean, like, I don't know what the understructure is in that dress, but it's magnificent. It's like
it is defying
the fact
gravity.
that it can be that low cut, but that her boobs can be that pressed together, so that again they look like cartoon boobs. You know, they look like perfectly drawn boobs on a live living human.
Yeah, she looks like a dark Jessica Rabbit for 90% of this movie.
The tape though that must be all over her nipples, like. That has to be a lot, right? Like, there's so many times where I'm like, how are we not seeing nipples?
Well, and therein is why she's there. Like, there's nothing else to call this but drag, you know. And and what I love is it also kind of follows the drag rules. I think my favorite part of the entire movie is the flashbacks to baby Elvira.
Oh my God, wearing the full face of makeup.
Wearing the full face of makeup, implying that she's not wearing makeup. That is just her face. That is just her face.
She always looked like that.
And what I love about where the plot goes, and sorry to take your job, Joel, but I think we have to segue into that, like, while the film starts as like, you know, Elvira's got to raise this money. It's the summer camp movie. You know, we've got to raise $50,000 or the summer camp gets shut down. As soon as you're getting used to that plot, then you find out she's also in a horror movie. And that's when it gets meta. Is this horror movie host leaves hosting horror movies to end up in a cheesy B horror movie. And it's meta and it's perfect. And it's also like, then we get the backstory of Elvira. She's from a family of witches. She's got magic powers like we want her to have. We want Elvira to be powerful.
Well, that's the thing, right? So listeners, again, like, I'm speaking mostly to our younger ones here, but like if you are like, hopefully you're listening to this and haven't seen it, but like if you haven't seen this movie, this is a good Elvira primer because it is essentially her origin story.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly accessible. So even if you don't have any experience to her, like that opening sequence, it's not just to establish the precedent that men in this world suck and will sexually harass her at every opportunity, but also you get to see her in action, what she's doing. Like, sure, she's being carried away by men as they prep for the news, but you're still getting the flavor of what she would normally do.
The first joke she says is, the gal with the enormous ratings, sold. Immediately, you've won me over.
And how liberating this must have felt to Elvira, to Cassandra Peterson, to be able to take the experience of working on a local cable TV station or whatever the setup is in the movie. But, she's like, we get to see the same dream that Cassandra probably has in her life of like, I was doing this chicken shit gig and now I've got a movie. That's what we're watching unfold for Elvira, the character, trying to raise money for her Vegas show, which is, essentially a big parallel of what of what Cassandra Peterson is doing at this point in her life. And I think that's so cool because to be able to make all the commentary she's making with the budget of a full feature film where every disgusting man who objectifies her and assaults her gets what's coming to him,
So we're introduced to the proprietor of the Cozy Cot Motel, Miss Meeker, who is played by Pat Crawford Brown. And, she's sort of the quintessential busybody where she's keeping tabs on everyone, but also specifically her granddaughter, Robin, who is played by Ellen Dunning. And Robin becomes Elvira's first sort of champion in this town. She directs her to the local bowling alley, which is where the scene is at night, if there is one. Of course, Elvira is once again immediately sexually harassed by Travis, played by Jeff Conaway.
Kanicki! I died when I saw Kanicki.
Yeah, there's a couple of famous people who pop up in this and you think, oh, okay, what are you doing here?
The big one for me here, though, so... are y'all familiar with Susan Kellerman, who plays Patty?
No.
Okay, so I'm not either. She's been in a couple things. She's also a member of the Groundlings, but there is a 2006 Queen Latifah vehicle called Last Holiday.
Oh my god. Last Holiday again, Trace.
It's so good. No, because Susan Kellerman plays Gunther, the German woman who oversees her room who doesn't like her, but then when she starts to like her, it's really, really funny. Anyway, sorry, go watch Last Holiday. Amazing 5-star Queen Latifah film with LL Cool J. That's my spiel.
Okay.
I'm not cutting that out in the edit. I'm just going to leave it in.
Of course you are. I would never doubt you. So all this to say, she ends up having to beat off these ogres, but she's also aided by Bob Redding, played by Daniel Green, who is our himbo for the movie. And he's delightful because he's so uncomplicated.
It's just such a shame that this movie was made when it was, because I do not go for the late 80s, early 90s hunky
lumberjack
male
look.
Aesthetic. Yeah, the brawny paper towel man. And that was
right.
what was really being pushed on us at the time. And I feel like the cigarette companies were involved because like he's still very much like the kind of guy. Yeah. He's like the Marlboro cowboy, but being packaged to us as everybody's dream man. And it's like, I love that the film has, what I was thinking when I was watching it is every man's a creep or a pervert except for this one gallant hero, and the teenage boys who start out as creeps and perverts, but Elvira teaches them to be better men than they probably would have ended up as if she had not come through town. And she uses their sex drive to get them into being volunteers to improve the community.
Yeah. It's a funny condemnation, right? Because if you think about it, just what you said, Jinkx, if Elvira hadn't come in, this regressive conservatism in the town would have, like, everyone would have thought, oh, we're going to help them to grow up and become morally upstanding young gentlemen, right? Mm-hmm. But really what we're already seeing is that they're going to be just like everyone else in this town, totally like homophobic, misogynistic, regressive, and just like ass
backwards.
Basically just ass backwards, yeah.
Just ass backwards.
So it's kind of funny that like somebody who pushes their sexual morals is actually responsible for turning them into better people.
But it's so heartwarming. Again, like as sexual as this movie is, like it's such a heartwarming. Again, I think it's a family-friendly film. You cut out that mention of a blowjob. This, well, maybe not be PG, but it's more appropriate to show to a child. But again, no child's gonna watch this and be like, "What's a blowjob?"
Yeah, this is the equivalent of the G-rated movies that Bob shows at his movie theater, and we all know there's nothing wrong with G-rated movies as long as there's sex and violence in them.
A lot of sex and violence.
Okay, so Elvira goes to the reading of the will, and she learns that she has inherited a house, a poodle, and a recipe book that Uncle Vincent Talbot, played by W. Morgan Shepherd, desperately wants. And of course, meanwhile, word around town is spreading. Everybody wants to get her the fuck out. But the issue is that she needs to sell this house to make that $50K to get to Vegas. And nobody wants to buy it. So she spends her time shaving and renaming the dog, turning him into Gonk, who is kind of a punk poodle. Very fun.
I know we can't just like repeat jokes over and over and over, but like the one that like really, it's the little ones that really made me laugh. It's whenever like Uncle Vinny is trying to buy the book from her, and she's like leaning against the car. She's like, "Sure, I'll do it for $50." As Chastity walks by, and she's like, "Oh."
So Uncle Vinny does want that cookbook, and Elvira is happy to sell it to him because she doesn't know what she has, but it disappears in the house because, of course, we've got some magic and other things going on.
Gonk hides it, again putting it in kind of a cartoony world where the animal has human qualities and is going to be her guide on this magical journey she's going to get wrapped up into.
I love this, the rules of the familiars in this movie. It's like, oh yeah, it's an animal that like, you know, whatever. I get that. But this dog can become a poodle. It can become a Rottweiler. It can spin around and become a mouse.
Right.
I love it.
What's your problem?
Not a problem, just an observation, Joe.
Yeah, so we learn that the kids are a bit dirty perverts. So we've got Randy, played by Chris Cram, who would have been Brad Pitt, as well as Sean Scott Morris and Bo, played by Ira Hayden. And, you know, there's funny things that's very Animal House, kind of Porky's-esque. It's very juvenile risque as they're trying to take a picture of her while she's changing. This is the only real kind of nudity that we sort of get, but it's all in shadow.
As we're talking about Wizard Masters named Tartikoff in this episode, we're forgetting Ira Hayden played the Wizard Master in Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was the other person where I was like, what are you doing here? So the kids end up helping her out. She has a gothic horror movie nightmare where she imagines, you know, as you said, Jinkx, walking up the stairs. She's a gorgeous lady and she discovers the secret room, but that'll come into play later. The kids arrive so that they can repair the house, and to me, this is a very Tim Burton Beetlejuicy moment when she sees the reveal and the house is green and purple, and she loves it.
Yeah.
The production design here looked the most like a Tim Burton film. Like, I don't think the production design of this movie is particularly, like, memorable just because we are in suburbia here. But this house is fantastic.
The house is fantastic, and it's so perfectly suburbia, you know, like
yeah.
it is the perfect depiction of the kind of town that she would shake up, especially at the because the town picnic, God, what a drab assortment of little old people, and that's supposed to be the whole town for their big shindig, and it looks like a retirement home shuffled out onto the yard.
It's so good. Ugh.
The weird thing is that all the people at that picnic looked like they were about 60 years old, but then there's also this population of teens, and I thought, where are their parents? Unless we're meant to assume all these older people are their parents.
Listen, we don't need the logic.
But that's where it's like, oh, we use Act 2 to shoehorn the teenagers into this movie because NBC said so. Like, that's what this is.
And it very much feels like, you know, that we don't care what the middle-aged people are doing in this town. We care that the old people are trying to stop Elvira, and the young people like Elvira, and the middle people, we only have Bob and Patty, and everyone else is either ancient or a teenager.
It's like a weird Children of the Corn movie in that regard.
Oh my god. Also, I'm backtracking here, but I am absolutely going to be pocketing, can I make you a cup of tea or something? Well, we don't put you in any trouble. Good point. I'm totally keeping that for whenever I have guests over.
Whereas the one that I will be repurposing is, ooh, what's that perfume? Catch of the day?
Unleaded. Don't smoke.
Okay, so Elvira invites the handsy realtor, Mr. Glotter, who, as you mentioned, Trace is played by Kurt Fuller, and he tries to make a pass at it. There's a bunch of physical comedy here, but ultimately he ends up getting kicked out by Gonk. And I do love her line where she says, heck, I was just 6 inches from selling this house today.
Again, right over a child's head, but right into the adults.
Yeah.
So she ends up trying to get a job, and we get this funny montage of her getting nothing but no's as people force her out of their businesses. But we also have Chastity and Mrs. Meeker exchanging this series of sped up phone conversations.
Just so pointless, but so indicative of the time. You know, it's like I find myself longing for contemporary movies that follow this kind of like kooky logic. Like I want movies again with the setup, like I want to see today's talented actors do these classic tropes, because I'm just like, you know, there's a reason why things keep getting rebooted, but what if instead of rebooting things, we just learned from what we liked about the movies of the past and created new stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, this is all just so silly, right? Like, that's what makes it funny, because it is that low-hanging fruit that you've referenced a couple times, Jinkx, but the reason it works is because it's low-hanging fruit and because it's still fucking funny.
Well, but the movie knows it, and it's not pretentious about being like, yeah, we're stupid, look at how good we are. There's such a it's such a very genuine movie.
Yeah.
I if this movie was a person, I would just want to give it a big hug. At the same time, though, I'm just imagining Siskel and Ebert in their review screening during this montage that we're getting with the chipmunk voices.
Just turning to each other. I don't get it. Do you get it? Oh, I think it's overstayed its welcome.
No, their mindset is, I get it, movie. You're not funny. That's what they're doing.
So sad.
Yeah.
Okay. So as she's sort of trying to have another meet cute with Bob at the theater, we've got Uncle Vinny's boys who are searching the house for the book, because that's still a plot line in this movie. But yeah, we're just basically continuing to run through the motions of freaking out either Patty or Chastity or Mrs. Meeker or other people being like, get that bitch out of town. Like, in a way, it reminded me of Saved. No. In a way, it reminded me of Easy A with Emma Stone, where the Amanda Bynes character is like, I feel for her, but also we need to get her the fuck out of here.
I think your Saved comparison is also apt. I think both of those movies work in this analogy.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a sort of undercurrent of religious intolerance, even though no one is expressly religious in this movie.
Which I really like about it.
Yeah, it's just the morality club. But I mean, it's just like another reason why this like has so much queer appeal is because the morality club is trying to shut down anything that's considered deviant against the heteronormative nuclear family all-American setup, you know? And I love a movie that depicts those people as the villains and as the real people, like, ruining society, you know? And
because it's reality, it's fact.
Yeah. And it just, you know, plays into, that's why it's so satisfying when Elvira's dumb, too, because it's like, as people are trying to label her as this devious witch, she's just a fun-loving, simple girl who wants to go to Vegas, you know, like, she's dumb. She put earthworms in what she thought was a stew that turns into a gremlin, but, you know, like, she didn't think two things about it. She can't, no context clues work for her. She's a cartoon character.
I will confess, when she's like, you have an extra E in matinee, I was like, Elvira, really? But honestly,
sweetie,
This scene. So I will confess. So I know the how's your head joke from RuPaul's Drag Race. Mm-hmm. I never thought about, oh, where's that from? I never realized it was from something. I thought it was just something that the show just created for some reason. When I heard it here, I was like, obviously lights clicked into place here. But this entire sequence has like 3 of the best jokes in the movie, which is the how's your head. I love the how to fuck, and the your problem is chastity pariah. Oh, I thought I got that cleaned up. This whole sequence is magic. It's comedic genius to me.
And it's like joke. So even if you miss one of them, there's another one coming down the pipeline like 2 seconds later.
Yeah. And in that sense, it's like, you know, she's like such a, it's so much like vaudeville, you know, she's got her one shtick and everything's, and that's why it reminds me of I Love Lucy and The Nanny, because it's just like, let's just build a playground in which this very funny woman can do her thing, you know? And that's what the whole film is like, what wacky situations can we put Elvira in so we can see the payoff of Elvira looking for a normal job, Elvira doing home repairs, Elvira trying to cook, you know, like, of course what happens is she mistakes a spell book for a cookbook and conjures a little gremlin monster. Like, that's what happens in Elvira's world.
But and that's the thing though. So had this movie done well and they had gotten more sequels, they were going to do the Ernest route and do a bunch of like Elvira goes to jail, Elvira skips, like that kind of stuff. And again, that works. It totally works. And I do think too that once again had this done well, then they could have started going a bit more risque with it once they got that new audience on board.
Totally.
I don't even think they need to though. Like the risque humor here works because it is so sly and wink wink nudge nudge. Like we know exactly what it means, and the jokes are smart enough to be sexy dirty without having to be crude.
Yeah, but I only say that because I think the intention here, because all the writers on board were like, were we able to like not try to go for the broad audience, this would have been a lot more risque. This would have been a lot more sexual. And I wonder what that movie would have been like, but I agree with you, Joe. I think that this movie is perfect the way it is.
Because I just like, okay, so we're up to her screening, right? You know, we've got the ticking clock of, we've seen Vincent go down his bat tunnel to his satanic temple and say, okay, in 1 week I'm going to do this ceremony. And we're like, cool, whatever, that's fine. And then Elvira, to make some money, decides she's going to do this screening at Bob's Theater. She's going to screen Attack of the Killer Tomato. She convinces all the teens to come. For me, a defining joke of this movie is we have already made reference to Patty's pronounced tits. And there's this moment where we're setting up the stage, we're getting everything ready, and then we just sort of pan gently by this curtain and we can see Patty's shoes peeking out and also the pointed tips of her tits.
Yeah.
Which are fake, all fake.
Because, of course, Elvira's, like, enemy, of course her nemesis in this, has to be blonde, has to be wearing pink constantly, because she's got to be the anti-Elvira, but she's also got to have pronounced boobs, but they've got to be, like, the wrong kind of boobs, you know? Like, they got to be...
This flat-chested woman was threatened.
Yes, exactly.
So, of course, we get a Flashdance homage that ends in a Carrie homage when Elvira is tarred and feathered.
I love the, oh, you're going to love it. The scene where I totally rip off. I mean, I'm inspired by Flashdance.
And what I love about this scene is all of the body doubling. And then you get
oh my God,
the backflips, but it keeps cutting to Elvira's head bobbing up and down like she's the one doing the backflips, which is so drag, so camp. I mean, Dayla and I did, we've done similar bits. In our holiday film, we had tap dance doubles. And, you know, we knew the joke we were making, and so does Elvira.
So she ends up taking a bath to remove all the tarring and the feathering. And yes, this is when we get the scene where she tries to make the casserole. I do love that this is just, some random kind of Gremlins homage. I could have taken probably another 2 minutes of them just trying to deal with this thing before they shove it down the carburetor.
Yeah, I think this is budgetary because this is the big effect in the movie, and it looks fantastic. It's so because again, the jokes are coming a mile a minute here. For some reason, the funniest one to me was when she thought that whatever the ingredient was smelled bad, but she's like, "Oh, well, it's good until July of next year." I don't know, like of course,
like
why
we haven't
not?
all done that.
But yeah, no, this looks fantastic. It's a great little scene.
So, yes, this is when Gonk reveals the secret room from her nightmare, and we get Elvira's backstory. We learn that Uncle Vinny killed her mother, which is why she was left at the Pick and Save orphanage.
wait. I'm sorry. I have a question, and this is going to be me being stupid and not getting a joke. So I did not understand when she looks at the doorknob and she breaks the fourth wall and tells the audience déjà vu.
I think it's a reference to her dream. Because, like Chase was saying, or who is speaking just now? Who is speaking just now? But
Joe.
She had the dream of going up the stairs, and so Gonk leads her up the same stairs that she dreamt about. And I think it's the first time she's seeing the secret door in real life. But I also had to realize that I didn't have the right tools in the moment to get what she was talking about.
Because I was like, is she referencing something? So in her Coors Light commercial, like she's in something and she comes across a standee cutout, like a cardboard cutout of herself, and she's like, "Oh, look at déjà vu." So it seems to be kind of a catchphrase in her commercials, which is why she's saying it here. But yeah, I didn't get in this movie. Why was she? Right. I was honestly thinking I was going so far with this, y'all. I was like, okay, maybe it's like a door, so it's like knockers, and so she's thinking about her boobs, but it's the doorknob, it's not the knocker.
Yeah, you both overcomplicated what isn't a very funny joke. It's more just the catchphrase. Okay, so we end up having a funny sight gag where she thinks she's making out with Bob, and it's actually a python. Ha ha. And then she actually does fuck Bob.
Well, no, what's great about it is it's not that she thinks she's making out with him. She's saying, "Oh, Bob, you're like, I'm so glad you're doing this." And then the lights come on, and it's a snake. So she must have assumed that was his penis. This long, prehensile, scaly thing that's probably squirming around. And that's what's so funny about the joke to me is like the idea that she would mistake a boa constrictor for a man's penis, and she's not put off by it at all. She's just like, "What a great penis you have, this long writhing
what a great
coiling penis."
Words we've all uttered. Yeah, so then another great sight gag is that as she and Bob do start to get down to business, we basically fade in on the word morality, and this is Chastity's Morality Club picnic.
Okay, so I know I made a tiff about the word blowjob being in this movie. We get full-on implied cunnilingus in this scene. Which
very lazily written full implied cunnilingus. She just walks over and says, "Is this space taken?" and sits on his face.
Now there's a line we should all be co-opting.
Oh my god, I will absolutely be saying that all the time. Apparently Edie McClurg was very, very chaste about this. Because she, Peterson was like, yeah, because they're all friends, they're all in the Groundlings together. But she was like, yeah, she did not feel comfortable doing any of the sexual stuff in this scene. And I think maybe originally they were going to have her like remove an article of clothing, like not be nude, but like, take a shirt off and she's wearing a bra. It took a lot of hand holding, but she was like, they did eventually get her to do everything they needed her to do, but she was not comfortable doing these scenes.
Well, and I mean, like, maybe comfort, but also like, I mean, it's just smart for her to protect this character that she plays in the film is what her whole career is playing characters like this. And if she had gone too far for the joke, maybe it would have hurt her future work, because like when you see her in this film, if you're old enough, you recognize her. You might not be able to pinpoint what all you recognize her from, but you've seen her in everything.
Yeah, you know her immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, those character actors, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically this just turns into like a hedonistic kind of orgy at the picnic. It's delightful because it's a soft win for Elvira against all these people who have treated her so shittily, and it feels satisfying. And of course, we still have the big threat, which is Uncle Vinny, who realizes, hey, this looks like magic. So when he can't get the book from her, he goes to town council, who are all mortified and embarrassed, and they want to get rid of her. And he says, well, why don't we just do what this old statute that I magically found says? Let's label her a witch, and we can burn her at the stake.
Yeah.
One of the biggest, it's later, but one of the biggest laughs for me is when the dog is barking. She's like, what are you worried about? You're not about to get barbecued. And then she barks again, and we cut, and there's like a tinier steak next to hers for the dog.
Oh, boy. Yeah, so Elvira is locked up, and the kids try to let her out, but it's these kinds of scenes where you realize, okay, the kids mostly work, but also you could remove the scene of them falling into the jail cell next to her, and it wouldn't affect the film at all, right?
My thing is, I have no issue with these kids being here because, again, I think it aids with the whole theme of the film. But it's when they're saying, oh, but we had to remove so many scenes from the adult cast members who
are funnier.
Yeah, who are funnier and have more fun things to do. So it's that aspect where I'm like, honestly, I mean, look, the movie's 97 minutes. Give me a 2-hour version of this. I'm fine. Critics wouldn't have liked it. I'm fine with it.
What I like about the messaging of the kids all being on Elvira's side is it's showing the young people who this movie was aimed towards.
Yep.
That, like, this is the way of the future. This is what kids like, you know? People like her, who she might be flagrant about her sexuality, but she's actually the only good one here, you know? Like,
right.
I do like the messaging of, like, cool kids like Elvira, you know?
This is who you should be putting down stakes with.
Yeah.
Oops, I mean pyres. Oops, I mean yes. Yeah, so this is where we start to get some, like, really ridiculous stuff. So Elvira has sent Bob off to get the book, but unfortunately Uncle Vinny gets it before he can. She is set up, Patty lights the first flame.
You can't do that! And it sounds like Patty's gonna save Elvira at the last minute, and no, she's got tips for how to burn her better.
It'll light faster if you light it in multiple places.
Good on you, Patty.
And then Bob doing the whole, like, Patty, you're not a very nice person, which honestly is one of the best insults in any movie ever. There's something just so simple about being like, you're not a nice person.
Yeah.
To be like, you're putting someone
in this world, right? Like, that's probably the harshest thing anyone has ever said to Patty. It'd be way worse than Elvira saying, you know, oh, I'm going to punch your lights out or something. So Elvira is about to go up in smoke, but she uses her mother's amulet ring to summon a storm to put out the flames.
Which isn't going to help her case of not being a witch.
Right?
This is true. This is a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, though.
Now, wait, has she had this ring the entire time?
Yes, and we get many shots of, like, at the very beginning, we see her hands on the steering wheel, the very cool chain steering wheel of her car. We see this ruby ring on her all throughout. But it gets revealed in a flashback with a very on-the-nose zoom in on the ring with the voiceover of her mother saying, "You'll have all the power you need to defeat your Uncle Vinny."
So to be clear, Elvira has had this ring for God knows how long, pre-movie. And all she had to do was raise her hand up a little bit to get this magic power to come out of it.
The power comes from within. The ring is the conduit.
Trace, did you not even watch the movie?
She had to know that she had the power to be able to summon the power.
It's crystal clear to me now. Like,
yeah,
I
obviously.
It's like every adventure movie, right? We've always got the tools or the abilities to do what we need to do within us. It's just there's that moment when you come to realize, oh, this is what it takes. And this is her moment, right? She says, okay, I guess I'm a fucking witch.
Well, if we want to poke holes in the plot, we can say, why was there so much emphasis on the spell book for so long if there was also an all-powerful ring that Uncle Vinny would also really like to get his hands on, but we don't learn about the ring until we have to. It does feel like there was some corrective writing in there, but it's also like, let's pick one object of power that they're going to fight over, because that's what makes it feel like corrective writing, that we put so much stake into the book, but also there's a ring. There's a ring.
And here, for me personally, when it comes to gaps in logic, plot holes, whatever with the film, I will never put much scrutiny on it if the film doesn't seem to care. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Now, maybe if the tone of the film makes it easier for that. Like if the movie does have that pretentious air of like, oh, look at me, I'm a film, then yes, I'm going to try to poke holes in your plot to be like, okay, well, let's see how much of a film you are. But for this, I don't care. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Joyce is like, well, if you're acting like a dick, I'm going to treat you like a dick. But if you're having fun, then I'll let you get away with it.
If you're acting like an incredible pair of legs, I'm going to treat you like an incredible pair of boobs.
Fair.
I didn't do that right. I'm sorry. I'm going to cut that out.
You tried so hard. I loved it. The effort was A+. The execution was E.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so she has successfully freed herself. We've got Chastity and a couple of colleagues being turned into a pig because, of course, Vinny's moment has arrived. He has the book. He is increasingly distorting and becoming demon-like as we get closer to this lunar eclipse. He easily dispatches Bob and Gonk. I did not care for the image of a dog being thrown in a dumpster.
You didn't? I did. I thought it was hilarious.
I mean, it was funny, but I was just like, oh, I can't believe we're throwing dogs in.
It was more so that he didn't just throw him. It was like he just dropped him in the dumpster that made it very funny to me.
Okay, fair. So Elvira realizes that she doesn't have a chance in hell against this guy, so she needs to weapon up. So she ends up breaking into a store and coming out dressed as Rambo, and that's a very funny sight gag because it's basically the same outfit, only she's got heavier eye makeup on, and the slit in her dress is shorter. Or sorry, the dress is shorter and the slit is higher. There we go.
And she's now randomly covered in like soot and mud. And it was just so cool that like Rambo was like the masculine icon of the time. And then here's this big-titted, sexually vibrant woman kicking ass like a man. Of course, the bazooka does nothing, and the whole thing was just a throwaway sight joke.
Well, but sort of, because even Jinkx, to take what you just said that next step further, when she gets into the graveyard, she takes off her high-heeled shoe, and that's actually the weapon that does damage against Uncle Vinny, because it hits him and leaves an actual mark in his head that hurts. So you're like, oh, the masculine weapons don't work. It's only her feminine, highly sexualized objects that end up making an impact.
Which include her tits to get out to break the chain on the cemetery gates.
So that is an iconic shot. People reference that all the time.
If we take, like fundamentals of witchcraft into it too, like if she derives her power from her sexuality, then of course the objects of power for her would be the instruments of her sexuality. So if you're like tracking fantasy logic, you can have the justification for why the shoe was able to easily harm him, whereas an entire bazooka did nothing.
So what you're saying is she's a wizard.
Yes. I mean, there's many wizards at play on and off screen here.
So she ends up making it to the house so that we can stage our final climactic battle. Vinny suddenly has the ability to like spew fire, so the whole house goes up in flames. And she ends up cutting off one of his arms. It happens to be the arm that has the hand that has the ring on it because she lost it earlier. So she manages to get that free, and then she zaps him with it, and he explodes through the top of the house and is presumably sent to hell or something awful.
This scene is my least interesting part of the movie for me because it doesn't make any sense, which is fine, but I also am just kind of like, but where are the jokes?
I mean, it's like these movies with the ultimate villain becoming all powerful and then immediately immediately in the same night. Yeah, like, and like in such a way that like, it's like, if it was that easy, did they ever pose a threat? I think a lot about like Ursula becoming, the moment Ursula becomes powerful, all it takes is one ship to ram into her. And not only did it affect her, she's just completely defeated. And I'm like, what happened? What'd you think was going to happen? You were never going to run into a ship? If I take it one step further of connection, it reminds me of Tress MacNeille as Mom in a Wizard of Oz parody episode of Futurama where she screams. Someone gets champagne on her and she starts to melt and she screams. Instead of, "Oh, what a world, what a cruel world," she goes, "Who would have ever thought that a small amount of liquid would get on me?" I love the idea of an all-powerful villain that can't be defeated except until they can, and it's quite easy.
Right. Man, I agree with you on the Ursula thing, but it's the thing where it's like, that should be a gory death where we are seeing her intestines spill out, but Disney can't show that. Yeah. So I really wonder what they're going to do with Melissa McCarthy in this new live-action movie. Or maybe, actually, you know what they're going to do? They're going to give her an understanding villain origin story, and then she's going to be okay by the end of the movie.
No, that's going to be a separate movie that comes out years later.
And her tutor will be Emma Stone in the 60s. Yeah.
Teen Ursula.
I think that's just called The Descendants.
What I will commend the Little Mermaid musical for is they go into Ursula's backstory more. Mm-hmm. And even though it's not played for sympathy, I can find the angles where Sherry Renee Scott, who's an amazing performer, I can find the angles where, because when you play a villain, I've played villains before, you have to get into the mindset of the villain because you, the actor, has to find where the villain doesn't think that they're a villain. You have to find where the villain thinks that they are doing the right thing. It's true for Chastity Pariah. I mean, Uncle Vinny's just kind of like evil incarnate. He doesn't have any noble mission. But I don't know. So now we're talking about, an inevitable Ursula back story film.
Just roller skating across that stage, swimming in the water.
Look, we're just saying that Vinny is such an interesting antagonist in this film. We'd rather talk about the Ursula prequel origin story.
That doesn't yet exist, yeah.
If I ever do drag, my dream dress is Sherry Renee Scott's like Ursula dress with those fucking tentacles. It's like the best fucking thing.
It's really, really good. It's really good. And she has this line that she doesn't have I don't know if she has it in the original movie, but they wrote it into the musical for sure. But she says, "A woman doesn't know how precious her voice is until she's been silenced." So Ursula actually in the musical has this whole feminist lens you could see her roll through that wasn't really mined in the original animated film. So I'm hoping we see some of that with Melissa McCarthy.
Well, it's because she's Triton's sister in the play, right? Yeah, okay, that's the thing. Yeah, hey. Sorry.
Sorry. I know this, but the point is, witches are very wonderful things in the media, and we need more witch content.
Yes.
Okay, so Vinny has been dispatched. There's very little left of this house, and of course Elvira doesn't have the right insurance. So she's back where she started. It seems like all hope is lost. And then, of course, the lynch mob shows up and she gets a little nervous, but they've actually come to apologize and her car is fixed and she has inherited Uncle Vinny's sizable estate. So let's just cut immediately to this Vegas musical number. We've got hot men in suspenders and sequined briefs and red tights, and we've got a rap interlude, and finally a burlesque bazunga finale.
This is fantastic. So this almost didn't happen.
Oh my God, how could you not?
When they finished production on this movie, they only had the Vegas scene left, but they were out of money. And NBC told them, sorry, we're going to end it with Elvira on the patio of her house as the mechanic gives her a car. She's going to drive off to Vegas. It took weeks. Peterson herself had to go to the financiers and basically give a sales pitch as to why this scene needed to be in the movie. whether they were just tired of hearing her talk or they believed her, like they finally said, fine, like you can do it. It actually wound up costing them more money because they'd already let go all of the crew. So they literally had to rehire everyone, do new contracts and stuff just to film this ending scene.
Oh my God. But it's so important to the movie. Like, can you imagine if she just drove off and we didn't get to see what she was actually working towards?
It would have been like bringing a gun on stage and not using it, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Another wrench thrown into the mix. Peterson woke up the day they were supposed to shoot and had the flu, and she recorded this entire sequence while having the flu and a fever.
Wow.
Because this is like a full-on performance. Like, this isn't a short musical number. It's not her just sitting on the couch doing something. Like, we got a lot of action from her.
I'm so glad the musical number happened, because if we think back to, like, this is the ultimate way of giving the world Elvira, and if we think of it as a crash course in why you're supposed to love Elvira, it has to also have, like, then watch. Just when you think you couldn't love her more, she sings, she dances, she does the titty tassel twirl. She can do it all. Like, I understand why it was so important to the people in the creative team of Elvira that this scene make it in and it gets shot, because it's like the cherry on the sundae at the end is like, now watch what these tits can do in action.
Well, and that's the thing too. I like what you say, Jinkx. But yeah, this is like it's Elvira's like
it's a showcase.
What's the debutante ball where it's like it's not an unveiling, but like
Cotillion.
Yeah, it's like that kind of a thing where it's like, oh yeah, we're doing this for the world, for Elvira, because this also kind of serves as a series finale of sorts for Movie Macabre.
Yeah.
Because she's moving on to bigger and better things.
Well, we thought so. So, yeah, I think this is fantastic. And all movies should end with a musical number.
Yeah.
Always.
And it's also very Tu Wong Fu. The town comes together.
Yeah.
It's funny that the same story can work twice, but like in this hand it's drag queens, and in this hand it's an AFAB female performer. But it's just like
drag queens.
It's just like, the fact that there was ever an argument in mainstream drag about whether women have a place in the world of drag, like AFAB women, it's ridiculous to me, because we've had Elvira for years, we've had Bette Midler for years. Everything Bette Midler does, every role she plays, even when she's playing natural roles, has like the drag sensibility in it. And women have been doing drag, Dolly Parton, Cher, the fact that this is even was ever considered a new concept, women in drag, my God.
And that's the thing too. I'm going all the way back to our like businesswoman like conversation. Like Elvira, it's Cher. I would put Jennifer Lopez in this in this group too. I think there's someone else that I'm missing. I'm like, oh yeah, who's a woman that is like just really owns her own brand? But those are the three that immediately come to mind. It's Elvira, Cher, and Jennifer Lopez. They need to be in a Charlie's Angels movie together.
I mean, one of those things is not quite like the others, but yes, the sentiment.
Jennifer
works.
Lopez is a businesswoman. I'm sorry, she runs the world.
Beyonce. I mean, Beyonce's not doing drag. She's doing, femme couture.
She's doing the performativity of a drag, right?
Exactly. Like her brand is drag queens model themselves after Beyonce, because she's got it figured out so damn well.
Yeah, something about the it factor, right? I think divas and drag queens, in a way, are almost synonymous, or they speak to and inform each other.
Yeah.
I say to a literal drag queen. It's like Déjà Vu.
But yeah, all right. Well, that's Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, I think, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Is.
Well, do y'all have any final things to say about this perfect piece of cinema?
For me, it's all about the baby Elvira. I mean, and I almost don't. I'm reluctant to say that because I don't know what went into putting makeup on a baby. I don't know that makeup had any business being on that baby. I hope they used baby safe makeup. I noticed the nails were painted. I'm like, I worry how that baby was handled. There's this part of me that's like, thank God we got to see baby Elvira.
And that baby grew up to be Jared Kushner.
Oh, man. I again, as someone going into this with very little Elvira knowledge or exposure, I was worried that it was going to be a thing where I was like, oh fuck, like what if I don't like this? Like I'm gonna have to go on the air and say this. I'm happy to report that is not the case. I found this utterly delightful, constant laughs for me. And if one joke does not work for you, there will be another one about 2 seconds later that probably will.
Yeah. I really appreciate a lot of the things that you said today, Jinkx, because you said them far more eloquently than I was preparing to try to say it. But for me, it's the feminism of this movie. Like, she's so unabashedly sexual, and I love the intersection of sexy with stupid, because I think it's disarming in a way. I can honestly understand why this movie didn't always get good reviews, particularly when it came out from a primarily straight male film critic perspective.
Yeah. Because
this movie is so unabashedly for women and gays and just overall like the queer community. And I think it's really a love letter to Cassandra Peterson's talent and her versatility. Like, it's hard not to watch this. And as you said numerous times, Trace, want to either meet her, hug her, talk to her, or just see her in everything.
Yeah.
Again, she's been handed a raw deal over the past 30 years, and it sucks that she didn't get her TV show. We did get a sequel to this in 2001, but you know, this was kind of, I think, the peak of the Elvira like fandom. I'm sorry, not the fandom, just the public craze of this character.
But she's still around. She's still doing it. She's still stunningly, breathtakingly beautiful. Like, you wouldn't believe.
How is she still? It doesn't make any sense to me. I was watching the promo for that 40th anniversary bit on Shudder, and I was like, she looks exactly the same.
She is
exactly the same.
Okay, she is in her 70s, like looking amazing, like,
stunningly gorgeous.
Well, and you know, I feel like it just needs to be mentioned, but the only reason we are remarking on how good she looks is because we have been conditioned to think of women as just not, not viable after a certain age. And what's so wonderful about Elvira just existing is that she is in her 70s and she's still the sex icon she's always been. And she just came out as queer and she's still the sex icon she's always been. And so the fact that she is just still with us, still doing what she does, just being herself unapologetically, is like, you know, it's a revolutionary act that she's just still Elvira in the world.
Yeah.
And apparently her autobiography is very saucy. So if people feel like they haven't gotten enough of her from watching this movie, listening to this conversation, lots of good tidbits in there if you want to check that out.
Yeah, I've heard it's, just as you said, very juicy. Well, all right. Okay, well, everyone. So before we announce what we're covering next week, Jinkx, first of all, thank you so much for coming on to discuss this.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, and let everyone know. So where can they find you on social media? And is there anything that you are doing that you want to plug?
Yes, you can find me on social media at the Jinkx on Instagram, at Jinkx Monsoon everywhere else. Jinkx is spelled Jinkx. I paid extra for the K, so you have to use it. But let's see. You know, I will be touring the U.S. and the United States and Canada with the Jinkx and De La Holiday Show with my drag sister, Ben de la Creme. We are sold out in many cities, so go to jinxanddela.com and see if you can still snag tickets. If you're unable to see us live, you can always patronize us by watching the Jinkx and De La Holiday Special on Hulu in the United States. And if you're outside of the States, go to jinxanddela.com to find out where you can watch the Jinkx and De La Holiday Special. And the live show is different from the film. You know, people think, oh, I'm going to go see the live show. It's going to be the live version of the film. No, we write a new show every year, and the film was just the show that we wrote that year because we couldn't tour because of COVID. So we write a brand new stinking show every goddamn year. So if you've seen us before, if you've seen our film, come see us again because we're really, really excited about the show show we're writing this year. We are taking it to some metaphysical places, which I always love in drag comedy. So get ready for the zaniest Jinkx and De La holiday show yet. And you can listen to my podcasts anywhere you listen to podcasts. I got Hi Jinkx, which is an interview podcast, and I'm 40% podcast with my comedy partner Nick Sahoya. That is a queer-lensed Futurama review podcast.
And
Nice.
links to all of those will be in the show notes, everyone, so please go check those out. If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Twitter and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Follow us on Letterboxd to keep track of all the films we've covered. Go to our YouTube channel to check out our interviews with various horror filmmakers and our monthly hangouts where we talk about hot-button horror topics with some of our peers. If you want to chat with other listeners, go to our Facebook Horror Queers group, or if you just want to show us some love, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. But if you want to give us money, you can go to our Patreon at patreon.com/horrorqueers. This month, this is the end of October, actually, so we have episodes on Amazon's film adaptation of My Best Friend's Exorcism, Disney's 29 Years Later sequel Hocus Pocus 2, Hulu's Hellraiser reboot, Blumhouse's franchise Ender Hopefully Halloween Ends, and an audio commentary on Gore Verbinski's The Ring, just in time for its 20th anniversary. Whew, I know. Joe, this is our last episode of spooky season, so what are we starting November with next week?
Yeah, rest in peace, Halloween. We're moving on, but we're going to stick with the ladies, but we're going to go a little bit more high school and very dreamlike. So we're changing it up quite a bit in terms of tone and pacing. Folks, we're going to check out Knives and Skin from 2019.
Correct me if I'm wrong, this is a musical?
It has musical elements, but it is not a full-blown musical.
Okay. I have avoided this because I don't think it's going to be a movie I enjoy, but I have heard very good things about it.
Yeah, it's interesting, albeit I will say not always successful.
Okay, well, until we check out some Knives and Skin next week, we can cross out Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Indeed, and cross out Horror Queers.
Atlas Avenue, a long stretch of road that encompasses everything the city of Kennett Heights has to offer. Neon lights, traffic, crime, the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and the craziest of characters. My office was above it all. My name is James Locke, and I'm a PI.
Hello, Mr. J. How the hell you doing today?
Good, Edith. Nearly every year I have a new case. New people to meet, new clues to discover, and new problems to solve. But I do it the old-fashioned way. No technology. Nothing post-1950. Hell, I don't even listen to podcasts, but you should. Atlas Avenue Beat is a spoof of the film noir genre with goofy characters, tons of wordplay, and non-stop raunchy humor. There's also 3 whole seasons out right now with more on the way. Just search for Atlas Avenue Beat wherever you listen to podcasts or visit us online at bloody.fm.
It was late in the afternoon when the professor and I took our way towards the east, whence I knew Jonathan was coming.
Jonathan Harker has asked me to note this, as he says he is hardly equal to the task, and he wants an exact record kept.
Dear Madam Mina, I have read your husband's so wonderful diary. Strange and terrible as it is true. I will pledge my life on it.
God preserve my sanity, for to this I am reduced. Safety and the assurance of safety are things of the past.
I am in hopes that I shall see more of you at Castle Dracula.
Listen to Regarding Dracula wherever you listen to podcasts, or find us online at bloody.fm.